Hi everyone, Paul Kegabon with the Garland County Library, and here once again with Judy Dare, who is the Know What to Grow It chairperson with the Garland County Master Gardeners. With
Hello everyone.
Another program. Hello Judy. And tonight's program is all about bats of Arkansas. And I know there's a lot of excitement for this one, and people have been looking forward to it. I see quite a few people have jumped in to watch. But Judy, why did you choose bats for the program? Well, what's the connection with gardening?
Well, actually, bats are not pollinators in Arkansas, but bats are really important to the environment, in my opinion. I've been losing bats over the last few years around my house, and they are great mosquito eaters. And so I was really excited that I've been seeing bats lately again. And so I think Phillip will be able to tell us a little bit what's going on with the bats and why they're so important. Like I said, they're not pollinators, but they are really important. And like I said, mostly because of the mosquitoes for me. But anyway, I think it's going to be a really fun program, and we've got a lot to talk about tonight.
Excellent. Well, before we get to Mr. Phillip Jordan, you're going to have another person that's going to hop on and a few words. But before we do that, I want to remind everyone, encourage everyone to leave your questions about the topic, which is bats tonight. And if you ask a question for our presenter, even if you might already know the answer, if you think it's valuable information for other people, don't hesitate to ask. But one random person who asks a question will be selected to win a $25 gift card to the Lake Hamilton Garden Center. We try and mix it up to a different small local business gardening related every month. So this month the gift card is to the Lake Hamilton Garden Center.
Yeah, that out there, that $25 can go a long way. So it's a wonderful place. I go there all the time. Have trees from there. Anyway, so is it my turn to jump on in?
Turning it over to you.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Know What to Grow It. It appears that the high heat is broken and the rains have come, and thank goodness. And it's a good time to think about your fall garden. If you want information about good things to plant, you can visit our extension office at 236 Woodbine, or go online to the website Paul is going to show in the chat box, or come visit the Ask a Master Gardener booth Saturdays at the Farmers Market. Now, tonight, as we've talked about, we have a great program on the bats of Arkansas with Phillip Jordan, who works for the U.S. Forest Service. And we have an office right here in Hot Springs, and we have been so fortunate to have all these U.S. Forest Service biologists and rangers to present for Know What to Grow It. So a big thanks to them. But before tonight's program, I have a few announcements and a special guest speaker. Now, there is not going to be a Know What to Grow It in September. It's a really busy month at the library. They're having their big Friends of the Library sale and Spa Con. And the Master Gardeners are going to be really busy with the Garland County Fair. We will be back in October with our regular night, the third Wednesday of the month, which is going to be October 19th at 6 p.m., with a special program by Garland County Master Gardeners, Ann and Mary, who are going to tell us all about the wonderful school projects they're doing and their focus on pollinator programs. They were so instrumental in the library's pollinator garden, and they'll have some really interesting information that you can use at home to attract pollinators. But our special guest tonight is Luke Duffel. Luke is our new Garland County Extension Agent for Horticulture, and he's been with us since the beginning of 2022. He is great to work with, a wealth of information, and a terrific person. And it is my pleasure to introduce Luke Duffel.
Thank you, Judy. It's great to be here. So I'm going to just visit a little bit and tell you about the Garland County Fair. So we've got a flyer here that we'll post up, but it's going to be September 9th to the 17th. Going to be all kinds of fun stuff there. We're going to have the demolition derby. We've got a fair pageant, livestock exhibits. You've got the car show, the rodeo, and then the junior livestock show. But I also want to talk to you a little bit about the creative arts, horticulture, and the commercial exhibits, mainly the horticulture exhibit. The horticulture building is taken care of with the Master Gardeners. They do all the planning there and do a wonderful job with that. And so want to encourage you to come out and enter your plants in the competition. there and try to get some ribbons and maybe a little money as well. So to register, you want to go to garlandcountyfair.com. That's going to give you all the information you need, but you can find the handbook there. Gives you all the rules and regulations for entries. Entry date is going to be September 13th. September 12th. September 12th. That's 9 to 5 p.m. So 9 in the morning until 5 p.m. and it's going to be in Building 6. There's going to be 4 divisions that you enter in, and then a whole bunch of classes in those. So go check those out in that handbook to see what you can enter. And then September 15th to the 17th from 5 p.m. until 9 p.m., they're going to have the exhibits open there at the Horticulture building. And it's going to be a great exhibits to see. I hear that we've got a lot of new ones this year, and we're going to have a tractor there for kids to take pictures on. We're going to have a discovery zone for the kids where they can make their own terrarium and see aloe vera plants and all kinds of fun stuff. So come out and see that. Also come out and support the students. We've got our 4-H and our FFA students that are going to be competing there in livestock shows. One thing that's really neat is the premium sale. This is a way that you can go out and bid on to help contribute to those students. And that's going to be on September 16th at 1 o'clock. So if you're interested in that and bidding and contributing, you can check that out and be there at 11:30 at the EHC building. That's going to be lunch provided if you're a bidder, and then the auction itself starts at 1 o'clock. You bid, you do not get the animals. It's just to help contribute to them. They spend a lot of hours and money raising these animals, so it's to help to recoup that for them and continue on with their education. And then the Clover Cafe, the 4-H runs a Clover Cafe, so go get your snacks there, support them with that, and they're going to have their famous pumpkin rolls there. I'm going to help them make some of those this year, so those will be homemade, and come and enjoy those. But it's great to be on the show. This is my first Garland County Fair, so I'm really excited to come out, see everybody there. If you see me, introduce yourself, and let's have some fun out there.
That's awesome. Now, Luke, can you tell people once again where they can register and get the information?
So at the fairgrounds, it's building number 6. It's the Horticulture building, and it is on September 12th is when you want to bring your plants to come register, and it's from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. And on the website, there'll be some contact numbers there too if you need help.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us. And if anyone has any questions for Luke, you can always find him at 236 Woodbine because, well, unless he's on a work project with us, because he comes out to most of them, and we really appreciate it. So thanks for being with us tonight, and we'll see you at the fair.
Thank you.
All right. So now is time for our program. So Phillip Jordan is a wildlife biologist who has worked with the U.S. Forest Service for 8 years. He graduated from Arkansas State University with a master's degree in biology, where he also earned a bachelor's degree in wildlife ecology and management. He has been working with, studying, and catching bats for the last 15 years. He's worked all over Arkansas and has caught all 16 species of bats that live here. He has traveled to Central America to catch and study bats in a neotropical setting and published a range extension for the common sword-nosed bat. I don't know what that is, but it sounds interesting. Prior to his work with wildlife biology, Phillip spent 8 years in the military with 1 year spent in Operation Iraqi Freedom as a combat engineer, and we thank you for your service. Phillip lives in Hot Springs with Allison, his wife of 17 years. He says his major accomplishment is his 13-year-old son, Nate. He enjoys photography, bird watching, and traveling to new places. It's my pleasure to introduce Phillip Jordan.
Wow, thanks for that, Judy.
Good to have you here. We're looking forward to it.
All right, whenever we want to get started, I'm ready. All right. So everybody, as Judy said, my name's Phillip Jordan, and I appreciate everybody that's came out tonight to watch this program. The way I organize this is first I go through a little bit of the natural history and some basic facts about bats, and then I go into the bats that we have here in Arkansas, and then we talk about white nose syndrome and then how we can help the bats that we have here. So let's get started. So bats, of course, are mammals, and they fall under the order Chiroptera, which means hand wing. And if you can see my pointer, you can just look at my hand, and right here's the thumb, and then the two fingers are kind of fused, and then we have these two fingers down here. So Chiroptera means hand wing. And the skin in between the fingers is called patagium, and down here it's called uropatagium. And under the order Chiroptera, we have two suborders. We have Megachiroptera, which are only found in the Old World, Africa, Asia, Australia, and they include the really big bats, the flying foxes, the hammerheads, the two-nosed bats. And then we have the Microchiropteras, which are found all throughout the world, but the species we have here in the New World, South America and North America, they're all Microchiropterans. Bat diversity is large. There's bats have been known to exist for 57 million years, and here's the first fossil of a bat that was discovered. And there's over 1,000 species worldwide, 47 here in the United States, and 16 just in Arkansas. One we believe is to be extirpated, which means no longer in the state, and that's the little brown bat. And our state biologist feels that we've lost that bat from Arkansas. So not all bats use echolocation, and that can be a misconception. Some do use their other senses, like some use their sight, some use the sense of smelling, and some just use their ears to listen for different things. And so when we look at diversity, we can look at several different things, like our wingspan. This guy is a bumblebee bat. It's found in Indonesia, and it has a wingspan of maybe 5 inches. But then we can look at the flying fox, which has a wingspan of close to 6 feet. So the bats range from small to large, and then we can look at their face and be like, oh, well, this is a cute tent-making bat, which it is a cute tent-making bat. But then we can look at other species and like, oh no, this is a wrinkled-faced bat, and it's not the prettiest bat of the bat world, of course. But the thought behind the evolutionary design of this bat is that they're fruit eaters and nectar drinkers, and the hypothesis of why these wrinkles are the way they are is that these guys just kind of plunge their face into a piece of fruit, and the nectar of the fruit or the juices will follow these little ridges down into the mouth. And so that's a hypothesis behind it. Of course, we don't really know if that's what's going on, but it's a good thought on why it's just not the prettiest bat of the bat world. And then we can look at the ears, and this is a northern long-eared bat, and its genus is Myotis, and Myotis means mouse ears. Or we can look at a pallid bat whose ears are just absolutely huge. These bats, they're moth specialists, and they actually listen for the wing beats of moths, and that's why we think that their ears are so large. Now, when we look at the bats of Arkansas. First, they're all insectivorous. So that means that the only thing they eat are insects. Now, with what Judy was saying earlier, they do provide a huge agricultural benefit for humans here in the United States and throughout the world. So just in the United States, it's estimated that farmers, agriculturalists save $22.9 billion in savings from pesticide uses, from harms that the pest insects will cause to the farm. And so they do provide a huge ecological benefit for humans. So 150 brown bats, which is one of our more abundant bat species, can eat 1.3 million pest insects per year. So you multiply the 150 times a huge population, and they do a lot of damage to pest insects. So they provide they provide a huge benefit for humans, and so that's why they are so important for us. And so when I talk about the bats of Arkansas and bats of the East, I like to separate them into like how they hibernate and where they roost. During their hibernation, bats can drop their body temperature down to below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, which is really, really cold. And they can take one breath per 15 minutes and have a heart rate of 20 beats per minute when their normal heart rate is up to 200. And so when I was talking earlier, I like to separate the bats into forest and cave hibernation for winter and forest and cave roosting for summer. And we'll talk about that. And so when we look at our cave bats, there are two bat species that are obligated to caves, meaning they spend their entire lives in caves. They hibernate in caves, they roost during the summertime in caves. The only time they come out of the caves are to forage during the summertime. And our first one is the Ozark Bigger Bat. It's extremely endangered. Only about 3,000 are known to exist. Only in a few counties in Arkansas and Oklahoma. And again, it's Bigger Bat. They specialize on moths. Now, this is the Ozark Bigger Bat, and I took this picture. It was a really tough picture to get, but it actually got put on the Bats of Arkansas book, which that's kind of a shameless plug for my photography. But and I took a lot of these books up to the Garland County Library. They're free. Feel free to go up and get one when you need, if you want. So this is the range. Again, like I said, it's in Arkansas and Oklahoma. So moving on to the gray bat. It's also an endangered species, but there's quite a few more, or a lot more than the Ozark Bigger Bat. And biologists have done a really good job at bringing these bats back from the brink of extinction. And now approximately 2.2 million exist. And there were talk about taking them off the endangered species list until white nose syndrome actually came through and started really hurting bat populations. They can be found in approximately 95% can be found in 11 caves. And Blanchard Springs Caverns in Mountain View has a really large population of gray bats. And that's where this guy came from. And this is the range. So these guys, like I said, are cave bats, but they are in the limestone karst caves of northern Arkansas and throughout this area. So they are in limestone caves. So that's where the karst region of the United States is. So when we're looking at our forest bats, so not all, and like another misconception is that all bats stay in caves. Well, that's just not true. Some bats live in the woods all their lives. The eastern red bat, for example, they have a furry tail that they can ball up over their head, and they can just crawl up under the leaves during wintertime on the forest floor, cover their head with their tail, and stay warm and cozy until the next warm day that they can get out of torpor and get up and take off flying. And that goes for all the Lazioris bats. They all have the furry tail to where they can wrap their head up. And this is a really neat picture. It's not my picture. I wished it was, because it's really cool. But it shows the example of how this bat does take its furry tail to wrap its head up under. And this is a radio transmitter that they were tracking this bat. And it blends in really well with the leaves in the background. So you can see how these guys are really well camouflaged. The Seminole bat, it's another forest bat, and it uses the same strategy pretty much as a red bat. It's a closely related to the red bat, but just has a little bit different color fur, and it likes Spanish moss a little bit more than going into the forest floor. And they're a really, really gorgeous bat. They just have a really nice color to them. And the hoary bat, it's the largest bat here in the United States. It's very colorful. Now, they have a long migration. They go from the Northwest up in Washington, Northern California, and they do a southeastern migration to Central America. And here's this guy, looks like Stripe from the Gremlins. And they're really pretty bats, and they hurt if they bite you. Silver-haired bats, they are also a long-distance migrator. They also move from northeast to south, or northwest to southeast, and they are only found in Arkansas during the spring and fall. So if you're trying to catch one of these guys during midsummer, it's not happening. And here you go with the silver-haired bat. You can see the tufts of silver popping out here and here, so that's how they get their name. Swamp bats. I call them swamp bats because that's where I grew up catching these guys. But they're not strictly regulated to the swamps. They do like bottomland hardwood forest, but they also will roost in attics, abandoned buildings, and whatnot. So both the Rafinesque and the southeastern bats are mainly found in bottomland forests. But the southeastern bat we found in caves, mines. Over the winter we found one in a culvert under I-30. So we'll look at these bats. And this is the Rafinesque big-eared bat. He's another moth specialist. Looking at the big ears, they're really pretty bat. And right here's one roosting in a building that I got a good picture of. They can curl their ears up like ram's horns. So they're a really neat and cute bat as well. In the southeastern bat, he's like, "Don't touch my head." But he's got this really deep orange, but they can have different variations on their color. Some can get mixed up with the gray bat that we talked about earlier. So now we can look at the bats that have more complicated survival strategies. So they will hibernate in caves during the wintertime, but during the summertime, they'll come out and they'll roost in the forest. Now, the Indiana bat, we used to think that they only went north. The females, they would go north and form these large maternity colonies in these trees until these last 2 years, we have some people that were tracking them from the sky, and they actually went down to southeast Oklahoma and just completely blew us away with how they went. So this is an Indiana bat, and they're just a cute gray puffball, and they're soft. Their fur is really soft, and they're really neat bat species. The northern long-eared bat, it also has the same sort of strategy, hibernates in caves, mines, and whatnot during the wintertime, and summers in trees with short migration. Now, this bat is the story behind it is really tragic. It used to be one of our most abundant bats, but it's been really devastated by white nose syndrome, to the point to where just a few years ago we were catching several, and now they're going to be listed as endangered probably in December when the public comment period closes on the Fish and Wildlife's listing of this. So it's a really tragic story with these guys. They're really neat animal, but they've just been absolutely destroyed by white nose syndrome. And the little brown bat, it has the same sort of strategy, and this is the one that we believe has been extirpated from the state, and it's also been really hit hard by white nose. And now when you see these guys, they all look really angry, and probably if you had some weird thing picking you up, you would be angry, but they're really nice to work with, and they're not all just look like they're gonna bite a finger off. So and then we get to our bats where you can just find them roosting pretty much anywhere. The tricolor bat, we found them hibernating in caves, roosting in dead leaves, in houses, under bridges, sides of buildings. They're really not a gregarious species, meaning that they don't really form colonies. They've been hit hard by white nose, but not to the extent of the little brown bat or the northern long-eared bat, which forms really large colonies during the wintertime, which allows the fungus to spread sort of like mold on bread. It just starts at one focal point and it just spreads out throughout the colony. And so when I say it roosts on the sides of buildings, this was literally on the side of a building about 7 feet up on the math building at Arkansas State University. It just sat there and let me take a picture. And so I took the picture, and so, yeah. So we have the evening bat. It likes to roost in human structures and hollow trees. Not a ton is known about their hibernation patterns, but we hardly ever find them in caves or in mines. And here's these guys. They have these kind of nodules on their nose. It's kind of a fuzzy picture, but they got dark ears and dark wings, and they don't smell good either. They're a pretty stinky bat. The big brown bat, again, human structures, mine, caves, trees, pretty much anywhere we can find these guys. Right here's 3 roosting in a building at Stumpy Point. They're in Marianna, Arkansas. And the small-footed bat, they enjoy caves, and they do a lot of roosting in rocks and on talus slopes. Our bat biologist for the state, Blake Sassy's actually done a study where he went around and looked at a bunch of bridges and found that these guys really like to roost in those cracks in bridges that are about that big, and he's found a bunch of them. And so they'll go pretty much anywhere as well. I missed the picture of that one. Okay. Well, then we'll move on to the Freetail Bat. Now, the Freetail Bat, that messed me up. Sorry. The Freetail Bat, they form these huge colonies, and actually the largest gathering of mammals in the world is of Freetail bats, and is called in Texas called Bracken Cave. You can visit it, or you can just go to Austin and watch them come out of the Constitution Bridge. And also they like to roost in human structures and again caves. There actually was a large gathering of these here on Olive Street in Hot Springs. There was a abandoned house, and there was a large colony of Freetail bats, but the house had to be taken down due to health concerns, and it's the parking lot across from the Henderson State Building. So, well, no, there's my small-footed bat. These guys I like to call the Raccoon Bat, because you can really distinguish what they are, because they have these big black patches over their eyes, and they're a fairly small bat. And here's the Freetail Bat, and of course, why they're called freetails, the other bats that we looked at, their Uropatagium actually covered the tail, but this bat, the tail is actually free hanging, so it's Freetail Bat. So this is where the presentation gets sort of depressing. It's just tragic. So white nose syndrome, it's caused by a fungus that really thrives in cold conditions. So during the winter time, these bats, they're hibernating, their metabolism's real low, their immune system suppressed because their metabolism's so low, and this fungus can just take off and just go throughout a large colony gathering. It was first documented in New York in 2006, and since then it's been found in 33 states and 7 Canadian provinces, 15 counties in Arkansas so far. I'm not sure if that number has increased any, but it's suspected here in Garland County. My boss and I, we do some DNA swabs on bats in mines around here, and several of the swabs came back positive. But fortunately, we have not seen the actual effects of the actual white nose, white ears, and the eating of the wings. And it only affects hibernating cave bats. And what this does, it gets under the integument of the skin, and it causes a super irritation. And so these bats get up during the wintertime, and they take off trying to fly. They scratch, and they're trying to fly, trying to get away from this irritation that's just making their life grief. And so while they're trying to escape this irritation, they're using up all their body fats that they spent so much time during the fall getting built up. And so when they get up and they use all this body fat, they need to find more energy, so they go try to find insects. Well, it's wintertime, there's no insects, so they can't find the insects, so they end up starving to death. They end up dehydrating, they end up dying of hypothermia, and it's just been devastating. So we believe there's been greater than 7 million fatalities, and that number is very conservative, since 2006, and it's destroyed just large hibernaculas of 10-15,000 bats, and come back a couple of years later and there's like no bats left. And so this fungus has caused 3 species to be petitioned for threatened or endangered status. And like I said earlier, the northern long-eared bat actually got bumped up to endangered. So it's not a good thing. And here's the map. And like I said, it right here is the county or the cave that we believe it is first documented from. And you can see how it just moved north, and it's traveled this cave system down and got into Arkansas. And just here recently, one of the largest colonies of little brown bats in Montana was just pretty much wiped out. There's like 1,200 in this colony, and it's the largest colony of little brown bats in Montana. And now that's basically 100% mortality. So it's tragic that it's really been spreading that far west. And so I'll stop here and let the screen just be blank for a minute, because I do show some pretty awful pictures that's been taken of the devastation that this fungus has caused bats. So some of these pictures are pretty graphic, but I feel it's important to show these pictures to help people understand just how bad this is, and to help people just take a step back and look at their caves or their mines or whatever they have on their property, and just maybe have an extra thought on, maybe I shouldn't go in this cave or mine during the winter time. So I stop here and give a warning. But let's look at them. So these guys, they'll find something, they'll light on it, and they'll just freeze there. Or they'll be at the entrance of a cave, and they'll just all be hanging there, and then they just fall down to the ground and they're dead. They starve, they dehydrate, they die of hypothermia. It's awful. Cave floors just littered with hundreds and thousands of bats, and there's really right now nothing we can do. We have a lot of smart scientists working on a solution for this, but with bats spreading it to bats, and then humans also spreading it to other caves, it's a really, really difficult problem to figure out. Right here, this picture down here in the lower left corner, it's of what's left of bats. If there's nothing good about it, but it does feed other animals. They're possums or coons or foxes or something come and eat, and yeah. But this bat up here, you can see how it gets the name white nose. If you can see my arrow, you can see the white around its nose, and it's got little dots on its ears, and just the wings are pretty ate up from this fungus. Again, here's another picture of bats that went outside their cave looking for food, decided to stop on this tree, and that was their last stop. It's just terrible. And right here's one that got froze on an ice sickle. Another one of bats just littering a cave floor. Now these are all pictures from out of the state. These are more in the eastern part of the U.S. But I do have a couple of pictures from bats affected by white nose from here in Arkansas. This picture, this poor fella or lady, the fungus had encroached and on its face, and it actually ate out the eye, and so the fungus was destroyed the eye. So that's bad. And then this bat, we didn't figure it was going to survive because it couldn't even make a noise. The fungus had pretty much welded its mouth shut, so it couldn't squeak. And so we didn't figure this bat was going to live for very much longer, which is just sad. But what can we do? I mean, we know white nose syndrome is just awful. What can we do? Like I said, we have some great scientists that are way smarter than me working on this problem. But in the meantime, what do? We educate ourselves. We come to presentations like this. We learn about bats. We can read about white nose syndrome. We can go to these sites, whitenosesyndrome.org. This is a website from the Fish and Wildlife Service, and it gives you everything that you need to know about white nose syndrome. All right. So if you're out walking your ground and you see odd behavior, like a bunch of bats at the entrance of a cave during an extremely cold day in the middle of the day, call somebody, let somebody know. We might not know that that's a white nose infected cave, and call me, call Blake Sassy from Game and Fish, call somebody from the Fish and Wildlife Service. Just let somebody know if you have a cave on your property and you notice weird bat behavior during the wintertime. Let somebody know. So don't disturb hibernating bats. If you have caves or mines on your property, how about just stay out during the wintertime? These guys, they're getting woke up scratching and itching and trying to get away from this, and the last thing they need is a bunch of humans coming through and waking them up as well. So if you can put off going into your caves or mines during the wintertime, put it off, go out during the summertime. If you feel you must go in the cave, go on this website and find the proper decontamination procedures. Wear a white tie-dye suit, scrub your boots off, spray any gear that you have down with 409 or Clorox, or use Clorox wipes on the gear that you took in the cave. Never use gear from a white nose county in a non-white nose county. Let's say you're in the Ozarks and you're in a white nose county, and you come to down here in the Ouachitas and you try to go into a mine down here. Just make sure that you don't use the same gear. That's one way that it's really been spreading is humans spreading it to other caves and bats spreading it to bats. And so we have to help the bats that we have. And what can we do? So we can attract bats to our property. And how do we do that? We can leave snags, standing dead trees. If you can leave them safely standing, and that's not going to fall and hit a home, or fall on a kid or anybody, just leave it standing. Bats love snags. So if you can leave them, leave them. Avoid using pesticides. Let the bats eat the bugs for you. That's a really good natural pesticide, is bats. I'm guilty of this as well, as I know a lot of people, but if you can keep your cats inside, because they're really damaging to bats. And this study from the UK found that over 250 bats die every year from house cats. It's the same with birds, but it's right now we're talking about bats. So just keep the cats inside. And we can install bat houses, and this is where I get a lot of questions. And if you go to this website right here, batcon.org, it's a really easy site to navigate, but if you want to go straight to the bat house, about bat/bat houses. But go to batcon.org. It's a really neat website. It tells you a lot about bats, and all this information that I'm about to give you came straight from batcon.org. So there are like two types of bat houses. There's a rocket box, and then there's traditional nursery style. So we'll look at the rocket box. Now, like I said, these plans are on batcon.org, and it tells you what you need. And this is the rocket box, and it's a really neat box for bats to roost in and to hang out in. And then we have our traditional bat houses. And like I said, these are found on batcon.org. And so what's recommended, and like I said, this came from batcon.org, and I don't want to feel like I'm stealing their information, so I'm making sure that I'm giving them the credit, because this came from their website. And so the best is to put them 12 to 20 feet off the ground. Make sure it's clear below. Don't have weeds growing 6, 7, or don't have a bunch of weeds below. Put them on a structure, a pole, house, barn. Just try not to hang them on trees. Snakes really enjoy bats, so it's a really easy way for snakes and other predators to get to the bats. Keep them away from trees, because if you have a lot of trees around, well, it's going to be hard to pull the bats away from the trees into the bat houses. Have maximum solar exposure. And so if you got a clear opening on the south side of your house or the south side of your property, use that area, because that's where the sun's going to hit it the most, and bats like to have a warm spot. If you have a water source near, that's awesome. Make them big enough, at least 16 inches wide and 24 inches tall. And if you rough up the surface of the boards, it actually gives the bats a better place to hang on to. But what's not on this slide, the main thing is not to give up on your bat house. A lot of people, after the first, second year, they won't have any bats in their bat house, and I'll get a phone call. How do I attract? Give it time. They can find your bat house. So just give it time. Don't give up on it, and see what happens. So here's a couple of examples of the regular traditional nursery style boxes. Again, now this is on the south side of a house. That's a really good spot. This is on a barn. All these are different style of bat houses. So yeah, just don't give up on your bat houses. And with that, I think I'm done. So if anybody has any questions, I'm willing to take them.
Well, I'll tell you what, I am astounded by what you know about bats, your passion for bats, and I'm just really kind of blown away, Phillip. It was a great program.
Well, thank you.
And I think Paul's going to post something from our UAEX website that we've got some information about bats. But I've never heard anyone talk about how pretty bats are, how soft their fur is, and the devastation of the bats is.
It's for a bat biologist right now. It's not a great time. I mean, we still have our bats that we can catch, but to see like the northern long-eared bat, it was one of the more popular bats that we caught, and so we took it for granted, and now we barely can ever see one. I mean, the population just plummeted so quick that it was it's just sort of heartbreaking to be a bat biologist right now. So, but we're still working, and we're still out catching the bats that we can, and we're still plugging away at it.
Well, it made me feel really shallow to think I was all about the mosquitoes. But the interesting thing that you said right off the bat was I didn't realize the benefit of the bats and not using pesticide, which is so important with so many things.
Yeah. And bats provide such an ecological benefit for just the health of the forest. I mean, we got all these emerald ash borers, the longhorn beetles that are really doing damage to large swaths of forest. And so if we can keep our bats population high, we maybe can offset some of the damage that those insects are causing. And and $23 billion isn't pocket change. So it's really providing humans a major source of benefits. So
yeah, and we can do, I mean, like you say, just be smart about the bats.
Yeah.
I had no idea that white nose syndrome was so horrible and devastating to a poor little creature.
One thing that I did forget to mention about the white nose is that it's a really sticky fungus. So the spores are really sticky. So if you go into a cave and you just brush up against the wall, you can get the spores on you. And say that you go into a cave that don't have white nose and hit the wall, you just actually transferred white nose to that cave. That might have been safe. Might have been a safe place for bats. So yeah, it's important to just try to stay out of caves, especially during the winter time.
Well, I really appreciate the information. I know Paul let me know that we have like a huge viewership tonight, and I'm really glad to get the message out. And hopefully we'll have more people watching. And I want to encourage anyone to ask questions. I don't know, Paul, do we have any questions out for Phillip?
We do have a few so far, and like you said, there's still a chance to get those in. Someone who asked a question, or even if you just want to share a short story about your experiences with the bats in your neighborhood, we'll accept those too. But we'll select a winner among those who will win a $25 gift card to the Lake Hamilton Garden Center.
Yeah.
But Phillip, before I get to the questions, I want to echo what Judy said. I really appreciate your passion, and pun intended with echo. There's probably a good pun about echolocation in there. But I appreciate your program, very thorough.
So,
we could tell you're really passionate about it, and
it's fun to give these sort of presentations. I mean, it is bad when we get to the white nose part, because that is a depressing subject. But I do get to talk about how cool bats are and how we can help them.
You're the only person I know ever who has been able to tell me that a bat's fur is soft.
Oh yeah, the Indiana bat, it has like the softest fur that you can imagine. It's kitty cat soft. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you, and like I said, I know we've got an office here in town. The books are at the library for anyone who's interested in learning about bats.
They have my picture on.
To do that. Yep, and look at your
like that picture.
You should be proud. Well, Paul, let's do the winner thing.
All right. Well, let's get to these questions.
Questions. Sorry.
Let's see. Susan asked, why don't we have bats in our yard any longer in Hot Springs? What might be some reasons for that?
There could be several reasons. Maybe it's just this has been like a weird season for bats. Even I'm having a hard time catching them. So there could be multiple reasons that it's just hard to know. Maybe she cut down some trees, or maybe they found somewhere else to to forage. There could be multiple reasons on why they're not in that particular area right now.
Regine asks, what are the biggest actions you can do to support native bat species in Arkansas when choosing how, how to manage your forest? And does this recommendation change based on being an urban or rural forest?
Wow, that's a deep question. Bats are gonna roost pretty much anywhere. If you got trees, you're gonna have bats. So if you have an urban, I've seen studies of urban forest that where there's a good population of bats, and then the out in the country woods that have good populations of bat. Just management of your forest, it just depends on how big you actually have. You can clear out the understory for certain bat species. They like a clear understory, but then some, they like a more crowded understory. So the suggestions range depending on what particular bat species you're actually looking to have. So I guess that's the best way I can answer that question.
Christine asked, is it safe to have bat houses up in the backyard inside city limits? And then follows up to clarify about bat houses in the city. I understand bats can be carriers of rabies. What is the risk of transmission to house pets? So the
risk of transmission to house pets, it would be low. I mean, bats are actually on the lower end of what carriers of rabies. So I mean, you have foxes. They're rabies more prevalent in foxes. Skunks, that's more rabies are more prevalent in skunks and raccoons, and then you have bats, fourth or fifth down on the list. But they don't really pose a serious issue for your house pets. And having a bat house up in the city is perfectly fine. I mean, you might have a little bit of guano pile up underneath your bat house, but as far as just it being safe, it's safe to have bat houses up in the city. Sure.
I went on a kick reading about rabies one night, so correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that it's harder for smaller animals. You know, the stereotype is that rats are rabid, but we don't see that because they're so small that usually when they get bit by something rabid, they're going to die from the bite and not go on to carry it.
I couldn't answer that. I don't know. It seems logical, but I'm gonna hard pass on that question.
Help the presenter.
Right.
So Susan on YouTube says, is there any way to combat the white nose syndrome?
Well, like I said, there's a lot of good people, a lot of really intelligent people working on this problem. And my suggestion would just be to, one, stay out of the caves, especially during wintertime, and just keep an eye open. And if you see strange bat behavior, let one of us know. But as far as her just being a regular citizen, you know, there's really nothing that she can do to prevent white nose. I mean, one, we absolutely tell people do not touch a bat. If you see a bat on the ground, you see a bat in your house, put on thick gloves if you have to, but just don't handle it free-handed, because they will bite and they can draw blood and it hurts. And if it's a rabid bat, you have to get a lot of shots. And it's just extremely important that people that aren't in wildlife and that aren't inoculated for rabies, it's just really important for them not to handle really any wild animal, but especially bats. You know, it's just a bad idea. But as far as just the suggestions that I had here is just open your property to introduce more bats, and hopefully they can multiply and continue on, and as long as we got some hanging out. So yeah.
Jerry on Facebook asked, the bats die of starvation, not necessarily the fungus?
Correct. The fungus causes them to get up and move and to waste their body. They spend a lot of time during the fall building up their body fats, and that's supposed to last them throughout hibernation. So the fungus, it doesn't kill them, it just makes them itch and it irritates them, and that makes them get up and fly and use up all this energy. And so the use of the energy and not being able to replace it due to the insects not being out during the wintertime, that's what actually is killing them. Yeah.
Belinda asked, recommend joining BCI. What do you program? Will you do a program for our Master Naturalist chapter?
Can you repeat that?
Okay. Recommend joining BCI is the first.
Right. Yeah, I do recommend joining BCI. They are a wonderful organization, and someone wants me to give another presentation. Is that what
but Belinda, she's a master naturalist. So.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Judy has my contact information.
That's right.
I love giving these presentations. I love educating the public. And of course I'll give a presentation. And now that I've been broken into the virtual presentation world, let's do it.
Do you ever, or are you able to bring live bats to in-person programs?
The best I could do with that is, like I've done some presentations for ecology camp, and I was able to set up some nets and catch the bats on site and take them to the kids and show the kids they're on site. I can't take them out of nature, and I can't hold on to them for any amount of time. I pretty much just have to catch them, show them, and then release them. So, I mean, if they want to go out, and I don't know, maybe we could work something out. No, that would take some planning.
Question from Kay: what types of bats? What types of bats do we have locally that tend to move into the bat houses? Do different species prefer different styles?
The big brown bats, they really like the bat houses. The evening bats will roost up in there. During the summertime, you might get some of those other woodland species, the cave and forest bats. You might get some of those, or you could probably get some Brazilian freetails in there as well. And yeah, just big brown's probably what you're gonna get right now.
Let's see. Belinda says the city of Hot Springs is planning to put up a bat house around the Greenway.
Good.
Good.
Let's see. She also asked, do you know David Saug, Saugey?
So yeah, I know Dave. Yeah, met him several times.
Let's see. Regine says, specifically in Central Arkansas, if there's no preference between bat species, trying to promote them generally. So if it's a larger parcel, say 40 to 200 acres, the best option would be to have diversity of habitats with areas in open understory and other areas with a more dense understory to provide benefits to most species.
Yeah, that would be perfect. I mean, if you have a larger parcel of land, if you had 200 acres, yeah, it would be very beneficial to have a part where you have a clear understory for our larger bats, and then a thicker understory for our smaller bat species. Yeah, because some of them will. It's called gleaning. They'll just like echolocate a insect on a tree limb or something, and they'll just go by and just snatch it off the tree limb. And so that's happens in a more dense type understory. Yeah. So if you have enough property to where you can to provide both, that would be very beneficial.
And then this is a good question. Is there a common hibernation period in Arkansas so that forest landowners can consider not doing harvest during that period?
So
Questions.
Yeah, the maternity season pretty much goes from May 15th to August the 15th. And we're working right now to figure out how to not disrupt our maternity colonies, especially since, we just got the Indiana bat. It just encompassed the entire Ouachita forest, and since the northern long-eared bat is about to go endangered, it creates a lot more problems. So we're trying to figure out how best not to disturb the bats during the maternity season, and also get forest activities done. But that's based on like the property. If it's like a super open area, you can probably do some work in that area. Or if there's a bunch of snags in the area, that would probably be an area you don't want to mess with during that May 15th to August 15th time period. And of course, during the winter time, it's just best not to go in caves if you have them. So,
and end on a real positive note, a nice little story from Sarah, who says, "We had bats in our neighborhood back in Denver. My garden loved them. I finally saw some here in Hot Springs a couple of weeks ago off Park Avenue. It was beautiful."
Nice. And they probably freetails or evening bats. if they were on Park Avenue, that's probably what they were. Or maybe even big browns. Who knows?
All right. So before I determine a winner here of our Lake Hamilton Garden Center gift card, do you have any final, common facts or frequently asked questions you think that maybe didn't get addressed?
No, I think those were some excellent questions, and I think I pretty much went over everything that I say during presentations. So yeah, no, I want to thank everybody that came out. I don't know how many people are out there, but whoever came and watched this, I really appreciate it. Bats are super important for human beings, super important for forest, and we need our bats. And so if we can take care of them, we got to take care of them. So thanks for coming and listening.
And we always record these, and they're available on the library Facebook Live webpage, so anyone can come and watch this again. And please remember to go get the books at the library if you're interested in that. And I have learned so much.
Got my picture on it.
It's been wonderful. And I actually go out in my yard and I can see bats flying at night. And I've seen more this summer than I saw last summer, even with the drought and the lack of bugs. So
they're just neat to watch. I mean, just watching them chase after, once they see an insect or echolocate, and just watch them chase after, it's just neat to watch. I can just sit and watch them. So
yeah, it's wonderful. And just before we close, I'd like to remind everybody about, wait, okay, do that first. I'll do my thing.
Somebody's a winner.
Yes, somebody's a winner, and our winner is Regine.
All right, Regine.
Congratulations, Regine.
$25 gift card to Lake Hamilton Garden Center. And so thank you for your questions, and everybody for your questions, and everyone for watching.
Yes.
And those books, I'm going to message my coworkers and have them put them up. There's a public info table right when you walk in near the display case. So You won't even have to go and ask for them. We'll have some books available. You can grab one. And
I took 2 boxes, and I'm not sure how many are in each box. So,
first come, first serve.
First come, first serve. So good luck.
Well, all I was going to say is thank you so much. Please remember the fair. Come out and see us. You know, it's just not plants. It's flowers, it's vegetables, it's eggs, it's everything. So come out and register your entries. You may get a blue ribbon. You may get some money. The 4-H has wonderful animals, and there's a pumpkin and watermelon contest for the kids. And so the county fair is just a great thing to do, and please come and join us. And I just thank you so much, Phillip, for sharing all the information with us and spending the time. It was really, really awesome.
Absolutely. I enjoyed it.
All right.
And one more thing.
McDaniel for suggesting Phillip about bats.
Thanks, Virginia. You should be out there watching.
I'm going to plug another event while I'm thinking about it, since it ties in pretty well. This Saturday at the library, the Greater Hot Springs Beekeepers Association, they're going to have a booth. They'll have a live observation hive. And if you're lucky, you get there soon enough, they might have some local honey for you to sample. So that's they'll have informational brochures and all that. And you can see the bees in the little observation hive. That's when we open on Saturday, the 20th. 1 to 3 p.m. Check out their booth here at the library, or at the library. I'm not.
Exactly. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We will see you in October, but hopefully we'll see you at the fair.
Have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Take care.